Lily Chen, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The words echoed through Terminal 3 of San Francisco International Airport, loud enough that at least 30 travelers turned to stare. Lily stood frozen, her carry-on bag still in hand. Boarding pass for the New York flight clutched between her fingers. The flight that was supposed to take her to the biggest presentation of her life. Marcus Whitfield, her boss and VP of Technology at TechVision Solutions, stood 3 feet away with 2 security guards flanking him. His arms were crossed over his expensive suit, and that smug smile she'd seen 100 times before was plastered across his face. But this time, it wasn't just condescension. It was victory. "You're joking," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Around her, passengers pretended not to watch while recording everything on their phones. "Marcus, we're boarding in 20 minutes. The Patterson investors are expecting us in New York tomorrow morning." "They're expecting me," Marcus corrected, holding up his own boarding pass. "First class, naturally." "Turns out we don't need you for this presentation after all." "In fact, we don't need you at all. My name is Lily Chen. I'm 32 years old, and up until 3 minutes ago, I was a senior software engineer at one of Silicon Valley's fastest-growing tech companies. For the past 3 years, I'd been developing an artificial intelligence algorithm that could predict market trends with 93% accuracy. 3 years of 16-hour days, of sacrificing weekends and holidays, of pouring every piece of my knowledge and creativity into something revolutionary. And the man standing in front of me, the man who just fired me in an airport terminal like I was some kind of criminal, had stolen it all. "The Patterson presentation is my project," Lily said, forcing her voice to stay steady even as her hands started shaking. "That's my algorithm. My research. My code," Marcus laughed. Actually laughed, is it? "Because according to our employment contracts, anything developed on company time belongs to TechVision. And last I checked, you've been working on company time for 3 years. You know exactly what I mean." "What I know," Marcus said, stepping closer and lowering his voice so only she could hear, "is that a black woman from a state school was never going to be the face of a $200 million deal. The investors want someone they can trust, someone who looks the part." He smiled again. "Someone like me." The security guards moved forward. One of them, a middle-aged black man who couldn't quite meet her eyes, reached for her employee badge. "Ma'am, I'm going to need your company ID and laptop." Lily looked down at the laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Inside was 3 years of her life. Documentation, research notes, early prototypes of the algorithm before it became what it was now. Everything she'd need to prove the project was hers. "The laptop stays with me," she said. "It's mine. I bought it myself." "Company property," Marcus said smoothly, and nodded to the second guard. "Everything she's carrying is company property. Confiscate it." What happened next would later be described in news articles as a routine corporate termination. The guards took her laptop. They took her tablet. They took her employee badge, her security pass, even the USB drive on her keychain. They were professional about it, almost gentle, but that somehow made it worse. Marcus watched the whole thing with that same satisfied expression. When the guards were done, he leaned in close one more time. "Good luck finding another job in this industry," he whispered. "I'll make sure everyone knows you tried to steal company secrets. You'll be lucky to get hired at a help desk." Then he turned and walked toward his gate. First class, window seat. Flying to New York to present her algorithm to investors who would make him millions. Lily stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by strangers with phones still recording, stripped of everything she'd worked for. She should have cried. She should have screamed. She should have fallen apart right there on the polished airport floor. But something stopped her. A memory from 3 months ago that she dismissed at the time. She'd been working late one Friday, long after everyone else had gone home, when she'd noticed something odd in the system logs. Someone had accessed her project files at 2 in the morning. When she'd asked Marcus about it on Monday, he laughed it off. "Probably IT running maintenance," he'd said. "You know how paranoid you get about security." Then there was the time 6 weeks ago when Marcus had insisted on being added as a co-author on her research documentation. "Just a formality," he'd assured her. You'll still get full credit. She'd been uncomfortable but hadn't wanted to seem difficult. And 2 weeks ago, when he'd suddenly scheduled the New York presentation without telling her first, then acted surprised when she asked why she hadn't been consulted. "It's your project, obviously you're coming," he'd said. "I just wanted to handle the investor relations myself. You know how these finance guys are about technical details." The signs had been there. She'd seen them and ignored them because she'd wanted to believe that her work would speak for itself. That being brilliant would be enough. Standing in that airport terminal, watching Marcus disappear toward his gate, Lily Chen made 2 decisions. First, she wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not ever. Not over this. Second, and more importantly, she was going to make Marcus Whitfield regret the day he'd ever heard her name. Because what Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know because he'd never actually understood the system she'd built, was that while they'd taken her laptop and her tablet and her USB drive, they hadn't taken the one thing that mattered most: the passwords. The admin access. The backdoor she'd built into every system at TechVision Solutions for exactly this kind of emergency. Marcus thought he'd won. He thought he'd stolen her future and there was nothing she could do about it. He was wrong. And if you're watching this thinking revenge is about anger, you're wrong too. The best revenge isn't hot. It's ice cold, carefully planned, and absolutely devastating. Subscribe to see exactly how a woman with nothing left to lose can bring down a man who thought he was untouchable. The Uber driver didn't ask why Lily was crying during the 40-minute ride back to her apartment in Oakland. Maybe he'd seen enough airport pickups to know that sometimes people just needed silence. She sat in the back seat, watching San Francisco disappear behind her, and let herself break down for exactly 15 minutes. Then she stopped. Crying wasn't going to change anything. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop since the airport. Text messages, emails, Slack notifications from colleagues who'd already heard the news. TechVision moved fast when they wanted someone erased. The official company email came through at 6:47 p.m. Due to violations of company policy and intellectual property agreements, Lily Chen's employment has been terminated effective immediately. All access to company systems, email, and facilities has been revoked. Please direct any questions to HR, violations, intellectual property agreements. They were already building the narrative that she'd done something wrong. By 8 p.m., Marcus had posted on LinkedIn. Lily stared at her phone screen, reading the words that made her stomach turn. "Excited to announce that I'll be presenting TechVision's revolutionary AI market prediction algorithm to Patterson Investments next week. 3 years of hard work coming to fruition. Grateful to lead such an innovative team. #tech leadership, #innovation, 3 years of his hard work, his algorithm, his team." The post already had 200 likes and 30 comments congratulating him. Industry leaders she'd met at conferences were praising his vision. People who'd watched her present early versions of the algorithm at tech meets were now celebrating Marcus for creating it. Not one person asked where Lily Chen had gone. Her best friend Jessica called at 9:30 p.m. Jessica Wu had been Lily's colleague at TechVision for 2 years before moving to a competitor, and she was the only person in tech Lily trusted completely. "I just saw the LinkedIn post," Jessica said without preamble. "Please tell me you have documentation that the project was yours." "They took everything," Lily said, her voice hollow. "Laptop, files, documentation, everything. Cloud backups, all on company servers. I don't have access anymore." Jessica was quiet for a long moment. "Lily, this is bad. Marcus is already telling people you were let go for trying to steal proprietary code. I've gotten 3 messages from recruiters asking if it's true." "What did you tell them?" "That it's bullshit, obviously. But Lily, Marcus has connections everywhere. If he's blacklisting you..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Being blacklisted in Silicon Valley wasn't subtle. It was a whisper campaign, a network of powerful men who played golf together and sat on boards together and made sure that certain people never worked in tech again. Lily had seen it happen to others, usually women, usually people of color. She just never imagined it would happen to her. The next morning, Lily woke up to 17 job application rejections, positions she'd applied for weeks ago. Interviews that had been moving forward. Companies that had seemed excited about her experience. All of them suddenly decided to pursue other candidates. She sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she'd spent countless nights working on the algorithm and tried to figure out what came next. Her savings account had $18,000. Rent in Oakland was $3,000 a month. She had maybe 6 months before she'd be completely broke. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Chen? This is David Patterson from Patterson Investments. Lily sat up straighter. Patterson Investments. The firm Marcus was supposed to present to in 3 days. Mr. Patterson, I'm surprised to hear from you directly. I'm calling because something doesn't add up. His voice was careful, measured. I've been reviewing the technical documentation for the AI algorithm that Mr. Whitfield is presenting. The coding style is inconsistent. Some sections are brilliant, genuinely innovative. Others are, he paused, sloppy. Like someone copied code they didn't fully understand. Lily's heart started beating faster. I developed that algorithm over 3 years, Mr. Patterson. Every line of code. Marcus Whitfield contributed nothing but his name. Can you prove that? They confiscated all my files when they fired me. But you wrote it. You must remember how it works. The logic structure, the edge cases, the specific solutions to problems that would have come up during development. She did remember. She remembered every late night, every breakthrough, every frustrating bug she'd solved. The algorithm was as much a part of her as her own memories. I remember everything, she said quietly. Then let me ask you something technical. The section dealing with volatility prediction during market corrections. There's a function that seems counterintuitive, but the results are remarkable. Can you explain why it works? Lily closed her eyes and saw the code in her mind. That function had taken her 6 months to perfect. She'd tried 11 different approaches before finding the one that worked. She explained it. The mathematical theory, the specific edge case that made traditional approaches fail, the elegant solution she developed. She spoke for 5 minutes, and when she finished, Patterson was silent. Mr. Whitfield couldn't explain that function when I asked him yesterday, Patterson said finally. He told me it was proprietary and he couldn't discuss the technical details with non-technical investors. Which I found odd, since I have a PhD in computational mathematics. He can't explain it because he didn't write it. He barely understands what it does. I'm beginning to see that. Ms. Chen, I'm going to need more time to evaluate this situation before we move forward with any investment. In the meantime, I'd like you to know that I'll be asking Mr. Whitfield some very specific, technical questions during his presentation. After the call ended, Lily sat very still. It wasn't vindication. Not yet. But it was something. A crack in Marcus's perfect facade. A hint that maybe, just maybe his theft wouldn't go as smoothly as he'd planned. But Marcus wasn't done destroying her yet. That afternoon, a cease and desist letter arrived via email from TechVision's legal department. She was prohibited from discussing the algorithm with anyone. Prohibited from claiming any connection to it. Prohibited from spreading false information about her role in its development. If she violated these terms, they would sue her for everything she had. The message was clear. Stay quiet, disappear, let Marcus have his moment. And for a brief, terrible moment, Lily considered it. What was the point of fighting? Marcus had the company, the lawyers, the connections. She had nothing but the truth. And in Silicon Valley, the truth was whatever the powerful said it was. Then her phone buzzed with a text from her mother in Taiwan, where it was already tomorrow morning. Your father would be so proud of what you've built. I tell everyone my daughter is changing the world with her brilliant mind. Lily stared at that message for a long time. Her father had died when she was 23, right after she'd graduated from San Jose State. He'd been a factory worker who'd immigrated to America with nothing, who'd worked 60-hour weeks so Lily could go to college. He'd never lived to see her become a software engineer. Never saw her create something that could change an industry. But he believed she would. He'd always believed in her. And Marcus Whitfield, who'd been handed everything his entire life, who'd never had to prove himself or fight for recognition, thought he could just take what she'd built and claim it as his own? No. Lily opened her laptop, the personal one they hadn't confiscated, and logged into a terminal window. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced ease, typing commands she'd memorized years ago. She still had access. Full admin access to every TechVision system. Marcus had been so confident in his theft that he'd never bothered to check whether she'd left herself a way back in. She could see everything. His emails, his calendar, his files. The presentation he was preparing for Patterson Investments, full of technical explanations he'd copied from her documentation without understanding them. Messages to other executives about how he'd cleaned house and gotten rid of dead weight. A message to TechVision's CEO. The Chun situation is handled. She won't be a problem. Lily smiled for the first time since the airport. It wasn't a happy smile. Marcus thought she was handled. He thought she was powerless. He thought that taking her files and her job and her reputation was enough to destroy her. What he didn't understand, what men like him never understood, was that the most dangerous person in any room is the one with nothing left to lose. And the woman they just pushed to the edge was about to push back. Jessica arrived at Lily's apartment at midnight with 2 laptops, a portable hard drive, and enough Thai food for 3 people. "If we're going to war with Marcus Whitfield," Jessica said, setting everything down on the kitchen table, "we're going to need evidence. Real, irrefutable, court-worthy evidence." Lily had called her 3 hours earlier and told her everything. The admin access she still had, the files she could see, the messages Marcus had sent. "This could get you in trouble too," Lily warned. "If TechVision finds out you helped me, I don't work for TechVision anymore, remember? And even if I did, I'm not going to watch them steal 3 years of your work." Jessica opened one of the laptops and cracked her knuckles. "Now show me what we're working with." For the next 4 hours, they documented everything. Every email Marcus had sent claiming credit for Lily's work. Every Slack message where he'd discussed the algorithm as if he'd developed it himself. Calendar entries showing that he'd accessed Lily's files at times when legitimate business would have been impossible. But the real treasure was in the code repository itself. "Look at this," Lily said, pulling up the version control history. "Every single commit to the algorithm for the past 3 years has my name on it. My username, my timestamps, my comments explaining what each change does." Jessica leaned forward, studying the screen. "And Marcus? He's made exactly 4 commits in 3 years. All of them minor formatting changes. Nothing substantive. Can you prove that the commits are authentically yours? That someone didn't just use your account?" Lily smiled. This was the part she'd been waiting to show someone. She pulled up a different window, one that showed detailed metadata most people didn't even know existed. "Every commit is cryptographically signed with my personal key. It's mathematically impossible to fake. Each signature proves that the code came from my machine, at that specific time, written by me." Jessica sat back, a slow smile spreading across her face. "That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. It gets better. Watch this." Lily opened the presentation Marcus had prepared for Patterson Investments. It was full of technical explanations, complex diagrams, sophisticated analysis. On the surface, it looked impressive. "Now look at these," Lily said, opening a folder of documents. "These are emails Marcus sent to the development team over the past 3 years, asking technical questions about the algorithm." Jessica started reading, and her eyes went wide. In the emails, Marcus asked basic questions. Things like, what's the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning? And can you explain what a neural network does? Questions that someone who'd actually developed an AI algorithm would never need to ask. "He doesn't understand any of it," Jessica whispered. "He's been copy-pasting your explanations without knowing what they mean." Exactly. And when Patterson starts asking detailed technical questions during the presentation, Lily didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. They worked until the sun came up, downloading files, creating backups, organizing evidence into a presentation that would be impossible to dispute. When they were finally done, Jessica leaned back and rubbed her eyes. "What's your endgame here? Are you taking this to TechVision's board? A lawyer? The press? All of the above," Lily said. "But first, I want to see Marcus try to present an algorithm he doesn't understand to an investor who does." The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Thursday at Patterson Investments' Manhattan office. Marcus would walk in confident, polished, ready to claim credit for work that wasn't his. And he would fail. Spectacularly. But Lily wanted more than just watching him fail. She wanted the world to see why. On Wednesday morning, she got a call from an unknown number. Again. Ms. Chun? This is Rebecca Torres. I'm an employment attorney specializing in intellectual property theft and workplace discrimination. I didn't request an attorney. David Patterson gave me your number. He suggested you might need legal representation, and after reviewing the preliminary information he shared, I agree. Miss Chun, what happened to you isn't just wrong. It's potentially criminal. Lily sat down slowly. Criminal? Corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, wrongful termination possibly motivated by racial discrimination. If we can prove that Marcus Whitfield deliberately stole your work and fired you to cover it up, he could face serious legal consequences. And TechVision would be liable for millions in damages. I can prove it, Lily said quietly. I can prove all of it. Then I'd like to take your case. Pro bono initially. Because I believe in what you're fighting for. If we win, we'll negotiate fees from the settlement. After they hung up, Lily sat at her kitchen table and realized something had shifted. 3 days ago she'd been alone, stripped of everything, facing an impossible fight. Now she had allies, evidence, a plan, and Marcus still had no idea what was coming. That same day, Marcus posted another LinkedIn update. Lily saw it while drinking her third cup of coffee, and her hands clenched around the mug so hard she thought it might shatter. Final preparations for tomorrow's presentation. Can't wait to share this groundbreaking technology with the investment community. Sometimes the biggest innovations come from the boldest vision. #leadership, #tech innovation. The comments were full of congratulations. Industry leaders praising his vision, recruiters reaching out about executive positions. Even TechVision's CEO had commented, "Proud to have you leading our tech division, Marcus. This is exactly the kind of innovation that will define our future." Jessica sent Lily a screenshot with a single message. He's really about to walk into that meeting thinking he won. Lily stared at Marcus's smug profile picture, at his carefully curated image of success, and typed out a response she didn't send. Yes. He is. That night, Lily did something she hadn't done in 3 days. She slept. Really slept. Because tomorrow, Marcus Whitfield was going to learn that stealing someone's work is one thing. But understanding it well enough to defend it, that required actual intelligence. And Marcus had always been better at taking credit than earning it. Thursday morning arrived cold and clear. Somewhere in New York, Marcus was probably in his hotel room, going over talking points, practicing the presentation, convincing himself that he deserved this moment. Lily sat in her apartment in Oakland, 3,000 miles away, with her laptop open and Rebecca Torres on video call. "Are you ready?" Rebecca asked. Lily looked at the screen. At the evidence they'd compiled. At the cryptographic signatures that proved beyond any doubt who'd written that algorithm. At the emails, the commit history, the timeline that showed Marcus had systematically stolen 3 years of her work. "I'm ready," she said. At 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Marcus Whitfield walked into Patterson Investments' conference room to give the presentation of his career. The room was full. David Patterson, 3 other senior partners, 2 tech analysts, and a venture capitalist who'd flown in specifically for this meeting. Marcus smiled, shook hands, and set up his laptop. He didn't notice that David Patterson's expression was carefully neutral. He didn't see the technical analyst pull out a notebook full of very specific questions. He started his presentation exactly as planned, confident and smooth. For the first 15 minutes, everything went perfectly. Then Patterson raised his hand. "Mr. Whitfield, I'd like to understand the volatility prediction function. Can you walk us through the mathematical framework?" And just like that, Marcus's perfect presentation began to crumble. Meanwhile, in Oakland, Lily received a text from Patterson. "He can't answer. Not even close. How fast can you get to New York?" Lily looked at the message for exactly 3 seconds. Then she opened a new browser tab and booked a flight. Red Eye, leaving in 4 hours, arriving at JFK at 6 a.m. Friday morning. Because if Marcus thought this was over, if he thought he could stumble through one presentation and move on with his stolen success, he was about to learn something important. The reckoning wasn't coming. It was already here. Marcus's presentation had been going downhill for 20 minutes when Lily walked into Patterson Investments conference room at 9:47 a.m. on Friday morning. She'd taken the red-eye from Oakland, landed at JFK at dawn, and gone straight from the airport to Midtown Manhattan. Rebecca Torres met her in the lobby with a leather portfolio containing every piece of evidence they'd compiled. Neither of them had slept. Neither of them cared. The receptionist tried to stop them. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Whitfield is in a private meeting. Tell Mr. Patterson that Lily Chun is here," Rebecca said, handing over her business card. "He's expecting us." 2 minutes later, they were being escorted down a hallway lined with abstract art and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Through the glass wall of the conference room, Lily could see Marcus at the head of the table, his laptop connected to a massive screen. He was talking, gesturing, trying to maintain his confident demeanor. But even from outside, she could see the sweat on his forehead, the stiffness in his shoulders. The way his smile had become fixed and desperate. David Patterson saw her first. His eyes met hers through the glass, and he nodded once. Then he stood up. "Mr. Whitfield, I think we need to pause this presentation. We have a guest." Marcus turned toward the door just as it opened. When he saw Lily, his face went through 3 distinct expressions in the span of 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fear. "What is she doing here?" His voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Miss Chun," Patterson said, gesturing to an empty chair at the table. "Please join us. I believe you have some insights into the technology Mr. Whitfield has been presenting." Lily walked into the room, Rebecca right behind her. She set her laptop down on the polished conference table and looked at Marcus for the first time since the airport. He'd gone pale. His hands gripped the edge of the table. "You can't be here," he said. "You signed an NDA. You're legally prohibited from discussing proprietary technology." Rebecca interrupted smoothly. "That's interesting, because Miss Chun can't violate an NDA regarding her own work that she created. Work that you stole." One of the other investors, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, leaned forward. "I'm sorry. What's happening here?" Patterson gestured to Lily. "Miss Chun, would you like to explain?" Lily opened her laptop. Her hands were steady now. She'd been terrified on the plane, anxious in the taxi, nervous in the lobby. But now, looking at Marcus's panicked face, she felt nothing but cold certainty. "My name is Lily Chun. I was a senior software engineer at TechVision Solutions until 6 days ago, when Mr. Whitfield fired me at San Francisco Airport. I spent 3 years developing the AI algorithm he's been presenting to you this morning. Every line of code. Every innovation. Every breakthrough. It's mine." "That's a lie," Marcus said. But his voice had lost its authority. "She's a disgruntled former employee trying to what?" Lily connected her laptop to the screen. "Prove that I wrote the code?" "That's easy." She pulled up the first piece of evidence. The commit history from TechVision's code repository, showing 3 years of development work. Every single entry had her name on it. Timestamps, comments, detailed notes explaining each change. "This is the version control history for the algorithm," Lily said. "It shows who wrote what code and when. As you can see, I made 1,247 commits over 3 years. Mr. Whitfield made 4, all of them formatting changes." One of the tech analysts, a young man with thick-framed glasses, squinted at the screen. "Those are authenticated commits. They can't be faked." "Exactly," Lily said. "But it gets better." She pulled up the next slide. Cryptographic signatures, technical metadata, proof that every line of code had come from her machine, her account, her unique digital fingerprint. "Each commit is cryptographically signed with my personal key. It's mathematically impossible to forge." "This isn't just my word against his. This is mathematical proof." Marcus was shaking his head. "This doesn't prove anything." "She worked under my supervision,"
I provided guidance, strategic direction. Did you? Lily pulled up another window. Emails. Dozens of them.
These are messages you sent to the development team over the past 3 years.
Let me read a few.
She clicked on the first one.
February 2022. Can someone explain what a convolutional neural network is?
Need it for a board presentation. That's you, asking your team to explain basic AI concepts. Another click.
July 2022. Lily, I don't understand the volatility prediction function. Can you write up an explanation I can share with executives?
That's you asking me to explain my own work because you couldn't.
She kept going. Email after email, message after message, each one proving that Marcus had no idea how the algorithm actually worked.
The room was silent except for her voice and the occasional sharp intake of breath from the investors. The woman with gray hair was staring at Marcus with undisguised contempt. You asked your engineer to explain basic concepts? Strategic oversight requires delegation of technical details. Marcus started. Mr. Whitfield. Patterson interrupted, his voice cold. Yesterday I asked you a very specific question about the volatility prediction function. You told me the technical details were proprietary. Do you remember what I said when we paused your presentation this morning? Marcus didn't answer. I said I'd spent the last 18 hours analyzing the code. And I found something interesting. Patterson nodded to Lily. Would you explain how the volatility function works, Ms.
Chun?
This was the moment.
The question Marcus couldn't answer. The proof that would break his story completely.
Lily took a breath and began to explain. The mathematical theory. The specific problem she'd been trying to solve. The 11 different approaches she'd tried before finding the solution. She spoke for 7 minutes, diving deep into technical details, explaining edge cases and optimization strategies, and the elegant logic that made the algorithm revolutionary. When she finished, the tech analyst was nodding enthusiastically. The venture capitalist was taking notes. And Marcus was staring at the table, his jaw clenched. Mr. Whitfield, Patterson said quietly, would you like to add anything? Any corrections or clarifications to Miss Chun's explanation? Marcus looked up. His face was red now, a flush creeping up his neck. I don't need to justify my work to. Because yesterday when I asked you the same question, you couldn't answer it. You gave me buzzwords and vague statements about innovative approaches. But Ms. Chun just explained in precise technical detail exactly how and why the algorithm works. Patterson leaned back in his chair. So either she memorized your work with perfect understanding, or she's the one who actually created it.
There's more, Rebecca said, stepping forward.
She opened her portfolio and distributed printed documents around the table. These are text messages between Mr.
Whitfield and TechVision's CEO, sent 3 days before Miss Chun was fired.
I'll read the relevant parts. She cleared her throat. Marcus Whitfield, the Chun situation needs to be handled before the Patterson presentation. She's getting too much visibility. CEO, can we postpone her involvement? Marcus, better to cut her loose entirely. I can handle the presentation solo, and we eliminate any risk of her claiming credit later. The silence in the room was absolute. This was planned, the gray-haired investor said slowly. You deliberately fired her so you could steal credit for her work. And then, Rebecca continued, there's the matter of the cease and desist letter TechVision sent to Miss Chun,
prohibiting her from discussing the algorithm or claiming any connection to it.
A letter designed to silence her while Mr. Whitfield presented her work as his own. Patterson stood up. I think we're done here, Mr. Whitfield. Patterson Investments will not be moving forward with any agreement with TechVision Solutions. Furthermore, I'll be contacting the other firms you're scheduled to present to, and sharing my concerns about the authenticity of your claims. You can't do that, Marcus said, standing up so fast his chair rolled backward. You'll destroy my reputation. You destroyed your own reputation the moment you decided to steal someone else's work, Patterson said coldly. He turned to Lily. Ms. Chun, I'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting with you.
The actual creator of this technology. Would Monday work?
Lily felt something release in her chest.
Something that had been locked tight since the airport. Since the betrayal. Since watching her work being stolen.
Monday works perfectly.
Marcus grabbed his laptop and his bag. His hands were shaking.
This isn't over. TechVision has lawyers. We'll sue you for everything. Please do, Rebecca said pleasantly.
We have 3 years of documented evidence, cryptographic proof of authorship, and messages proving premeditated theft. I would love to see this in court. Marcus looked around the room one last time. At the investors who'd been ready to give him millions. At the tech analysts who'd been impressed by his presentation.
At Lily, who'd been supposed to disappear quietly and let him claim victory. His face twisted into something ugly. You think you've won?
You're nobody. A state school graduate who got lucky. I'm Marcus Whitfield.
I have connections, power, reputation.
Had. Lily said quietly.
You had those things. Past tense. Because by the time Marcus stormed out of that conference room, 3 people were already recording. The venture capitalist was texting his network.
The tech analyst was posting a thread on X about what he'd just witnessed. And the gray-haired investor, who turned out to be on the board of 3 major tech companies, was making calls.
If you've ever worked for someone who took credit for your ideas,
who diminished your contributions, who thought you were too insignificant to fight back, stay with me. Because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when the people who've been silenced finally get to speak. Subscribe to see how one woman brought down an entire empire of lies. Within an hour, the story was everywhere. Not just whispers in Silicon Valley, but actual news.
Tech VP exposed for stealing employees' work. AI algorithm scandal rocks TechVision.
Solutions. Woman proves she created technology her boss claimed as his own. And Marcus Whitfield,
who'd thought he was untouchable,
was about to learn that in the age of cryptographic proof and social media, theft leaves a permanent record. The fall wasn't coming. It had already begun.
Marcus Whitfield was fired from TechVision Solutions 72 hours after the Patterson meeting.
The official statement was carefully worded.
Following an internal investigation into project attribution and management practices,
Marcus Whitfield has resigned his position effective immediately. TechVision remains committed to fostering an environment of integrity and proper recognition of employee contributions. Resigned. As if he'd had a choice. Lily read the announcement from her apartment in Oakland, sitting at the same kitchen table where she'd spent 3 years building something revolutionary. Jessica was there, along with Rebecca Torres, who'd flown in from New York specifically to deliver the news in person. They're offering a settlement, Rebecca said, sliding a document across the table.
$2 million, full rights to your algorithm, a public acknowledgement that you're the sole creator, and a legally binding agreement that they'll never claim otherwise. Lily stared at the number. $2 million.
6 days ago, she'd had $18,000 in savings and no prospects. Now she was looking at enough money to never worry about rent again. What's the catch?
No catch.
They know we have them. If this goes to court, they're looking at 10 times that in damages, plus the publicity nightmare. They want this settled quietly. Rebecca leaned forward. But here's the thing. You don't have to take it. We could push for more.
We could make them pay for what they did. Lily thought about Marcus.
About the airport, the stolen presentation, the cease and desist letter designed to silence her. She thought about how close she'd come to losing everything.
I'll take the settlement, she said.
But not because I'm afraid to fight.
Because I want to move forward, not stay trapped in what they tried to do to me. The agreement was signed on Monday.
By Tuesday, the wire transfer had hit her account.
By Wednesday, Lily was sitting in Patterson Investments conference room again.
But this time for a very different conversation.
I want to invest in you, David Patterson said directly.
Not your algorithm through TechVision. You. Your company. Your vision. Lily had been thinking about this for days. About what she wanted to build now that she had the freedom to build it herself. I want to create a platform that helps other engineers protect their work, she said. Blockchain-verified code commits, automated documentation of contributions, legal resources for people facing IP theft. I want to make it impossible for what happened to me to happen to anyone else. Patterson smiled.
How much do you need?
$5 million for the first year.
Development, legal team, marketing.
You'll have 7. I want this to succeed. 3 months later, Lily launched SourceGuard from a small office in San Francisco's Soma district. Jessica joined as CTO. They hired 12 engineers, 3 lawyers, and a PR team that knew how to tell stories about injustice and accountability. The platform went viral within weeks. Engineers who'd had their work stolen, their contributions erased, their names removed from projects they'd built, finally had a tool that made theft provable and prosecutable. Within 6 months, SourceGuard had 40,000 users. Within a year, it was industry standard. And Lily Chen, who'd been fired in an airport terminal and told she'd never work in tech again, was on the cover of Wired magazine with the headline, "The Engineer Who Made Theft Impossible." Marcus, meanwhile, discovered what it meant to be blacklisted. The story of what he'd done had spread through Silicon Valley like wildfire. Every company he applied to already knew. Every interview ended with carefully worded rejections. "We've decided to pursue other candidates. Your qualifications don't align with our current needs. We'll keep your resume on file." The same words he'd made sure Lily heard 17 times in a single morning. 6 months after his firing, Marcus was working as a technical consultant for a mid-sized firm in Ohio, making a third of his TechVision salary. His LinkedIn profile, once full of congratulations and connections, had gone quiet. The posts celebrating his innovation had been deleted. The industry leaders who'd praised his vision had unfollowed him. Lily heard about it through the network she'd built. Former colleagues who'd watched her get fired, who'd stayed silent then, reached out now with apologies and information. She accepted the apologies but didn't need the information. Marcus's downfall wasn't her concern anymore. She'd moved past him. 1 year after the airport, Lily was invited to speak at TechCrunch Disrupt, the same conference where Marcus had spoken 2 years earlier, presenting early versions of the algorithm as his own. She walked onto that stage in front of 3,000 people and told her story. Not with anger or bitterness, but with the calm certainty of someone who'd survived an attempt to erase her and come back stronger. "They took my laptop," she said. "They took my files. They took my job and tried to take my future. But they couldn't take what I knew. They couldn't take my ability to prove what I'd created. And they couldn't take my determination to make sure no one else goes through what I did." The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. After the talk, a young black woman approached her. Maybe 23. Fresh out of college, nervous and hopeful in the way Lily remembered being. "I'm starting at a tech company next month," the woman said. "And I'm scared. Scared they'll minimize me, steal my work, push me out. How did you stay strong?" Lily looked at this young engineer, seeing herself a decade ago, and chose her words carefully. "I didn't stay strong," she said honestly. "I broke down. I cried. I thought about giving up." Strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about deciding to put yourself back together and fight anyway. She handed the woman her card. "Use SourceGuard from day one. Document everything. And if someone tries to steal what you've built, you have my number." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." You don't know what this means, but Lily did know. She knew exactly what it meant to have someone believe you, support you, refuse to let you be erased. That night, Lily sat in her new apartment, a real 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with actual furniture and art on the walls. SourceGuard was profitable. Patterson Investments had just approved another $10 million in funding. She had a team she trusted, work that mattered, and a future she'd built herself. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. "Did you see Marcus's latest job update? He's a junior developer now." Junior. After everything. Lily looked at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Marcus's failures weren't her victory. Her victory was everything she'd built after he'd tried to destroy her. She opened her laptop and started working on the next feature for SourceGuard, a tool that would help engineers negotiate fair contracts. Another way to protect people who deserved protection. Because here's what Marcus Whitfield never understood. Because here's what Marcus Whitfield never understood. What people like him would never understand. You can steal someone's work, but you can't steal their ability to create. You can take their job, but you can't take their knowledge. You can try to erase them, But if they're good enough at what they do, they'll just build something better without you. Lily had spent 3 years creating an algorithm that could predict market trends. But the real prediction, the one that mattered, was simpler. People who build their success on theft and lies will always fall. And people who build their success on genuine skill and integrity will always rise. 2 years after the airport, Lily received an email from TechVision's new CEO. The company wanted to partner with SourceGuard to implement it across all their development teams. To make amends for what had happened, Lily considered the offer for exactly 10 seconds, then replied, "I appreciate the interest, but SourceGuard doesn't partner with companies that have demonstrated a pattern of IP theft and employee mistreatment."
Perhaps in a few years, after you've rebuilt your ethical standards. She didn't send it with anger.
Just cold professional clarity.
Marcus Whitfield had tried to write her out of her own story. Instead, he'd given her the beginning of a better one.
A story about a woman who refused to stay silent, who fought back with proof instead of tears, who turned her worst moment into a platform that protected thousands of others. And the lesson?
The real lesson that Lily wanted every person who'd ever been stolen from, diminished, or erased to understand.
Your value isn't determined by who takes credit for your work. It's determined by what you create next. The best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you.
It's building something so successful, so undeniable,
so revolutionary that their theft becomes a footnote in your success story. Marcus stole 3 years of Lily's work.
But he gave her something more valuable. Proof that she didn't need TechVision.
Didn't need his approval. Didn't need anything except her own brilliant mind and the courage to use it. 3 years after the airport, Lily Chen was worth $50 million. SourceGuard had protected over 100,000 engineers from IP theft.
She'd been featured in Forbes, spoken at conferences worldwide, and changed the way the tech industry thought about attribution and ownership. And Marcus Whitfield? He was still trying to explain the gap in his resume, still facing questions about the scandal, still living with the permanent stain of being the man who was stupid enough to steal from someone smarter than him.
Some stories end with revenge.
This one ended with reinvention.
And that, Lily decided, was infinitely more satisfying.